No, it's just as I hear you give that beautiful answer to Marcus's comment or question, I am reminded, and it takes my breath away, of what a magnificent gift this is, to truly be here with all of you. It moves me.
Yes.
And we are fortunate, I think. What a precious gift to be able to see clearly that we are here sharing this. Thank you.
Yes. Julio and Julio, sorry, and I were, I've got the Mexicano. No pasa nada, no vale naranjas. We were talking before the meeting began, and Julio was saying how being in a group like this is so heartwarming to him and life-changing. Yes? Would you be willing to repeat some of that? I hope so.
Yeah, without going too hyperbolic, I feel as though I'm amongst my tribe or my brothers here. And sisters. I'm so sorry to not be PC, but I include sisters and brothers. I mean, like-minded people, or a community, a fellowship, as John Troy calls it. I can't really say much more about it, but I've felt welcomed, and I feel myself opening and relaxing with you people for one of the first times in my life. I can be really relaxed when I'm alone, but amongst people it's really difficult for me to relax. And around you I can relax. And that is truly a gift for me. I never realized I might experience this. So thank you all. Thank you all. It's really beautiful.
Yes, most welcome.
I'd like to add something, just short.
Do.
I was speaking to a couple of you guys outside before, and I kind of expressed just how great it is to be amongst you, just as you said, to be around people that are authentic and aren't here for some agenda or to prove something or with inflated egos. It feels really great to just be around nice, authentic, true, real people that have nothing that they're trying to prove to the other person. We're just here sharing this together, and I thank you all for being you. It seems a bit rare sometimes these days to find a group of all the people not feeling like there's something that somebody's trying to prove or be something, get from agendas. So it's really nice. I'm loving this. So thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have any questions, but I was thinking earlier, something we talked about a long time ago.
A little louder, please.
Something we talked about a long time ago was I was asking you about, I was asking for some help because my thoughts were always hanging me up, and you were saying my thoughts don't hang me up anymore. And one of the things you said to me is, just imagine that your head is like a beach ball in the wind and it's just being blown around, but that's fine. That's absolutely fine. Just let your head be blown around. And I found that really, really helpful. And sometimes I feel really bombarded by thoughts, but I no longer hook into them or feel that it's a problem. I just think, okay, this beach ball is really blowing in the wind right now, but I know that this will change, that this won't last. And I found that really, really a helpful thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the metaphor I used was beach ball in a rapids, but it's the same thing. And I think that is the approach that in Elena's tradition, that's what's taught. That's Vipassana meditation, yes? You just allow whatever arises to arise and to be there for as long as it is, and you're crawling around on the ground of being, and so you're not elevated I have lots of bad thoughts, you know?
Yeah, and we've all been talking about bad dreams we've been having, but I don't think I'm a bad person now because I had a bad dream or a bad thought. You know, I know that this is part of being human.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, so one of the ways that we are all one is that all of us have evil thoughts. That's part of being human. It's not something to get over. You just understand, this is the way I am, this is the way we all are. It's not that white men are creating all these problems. These problems are internal to our being, yes? I don't mean that there's nothing to criticize about the so-called patriarchy. I can criticize that quite easily, but that's not the source of human evil. We all have our share of it, and that will emerge in dreams, it will emerge in thoughts, and will even emerge in violence quite easily, either violent speech or actual physical violence. We're all kind of near the edge of that precipice. Even the ones who are peaceful at heart. I mean, I won't even confess some of the thoughts I have, but they're not all good. I'll give you one. I had a recurrent thought. It's kind of past now, but I had it lasted a month or so, not steadily, but it would come back every day, where I was just hoping that when Donald Trump was walking down the jetway from his airplane, that he'd trip on the top step and break his neck. I really kept hoping that. I had the fantasy, yep, one of these days he's just going to lose it and fall down and die. And actually, it's not a bad idea, but I'm not obsessed with it anymore. But that's really a violent thought. And it's really an evil thought to wish the death of another being. It's not very Buddha-like. And what I was getting at is the Buddha had those thoughts too. He just knew what they were. That's my interpretation of Buddhism, which is, I'm not a scholar. Robert Hall, my dear friend and Elena's mentor, was much more of a Buddhist scholar than I will ever be. But he and I agreed on all these things. One of the great things that Robert Hall told me about Buddhism is that the Four Noble Truths are kindergarten stuff. And they were only told to people to kind of start them out and calm them down and keep them in line, and that you were never going to be without suffering. There was always going to be this element of suffering. So it's not that the Buddha wasn't suffering, it's just that the Buddha knew how to suffer in an equanimous way, and knew how to be there with suffering. And I will actually attest to this, speaking personally. As soon as you understand that, your suffering changes into something else entirely, but it's still suffering. But there's still pain, yes, but there's not the pain of pain. When I say the pain of pain, I mean, why is this happening to me? Other people have it much better. I'm still young. How come I have these pains of old age? This is terrible. I thought I was going to be okay into my 90s, and now I'm walking with a stick at 74. What the hell is going on here? See, that is the pain of pain. And the fact is, my thoughts don't go there. Not that I'm stopping them from going there. If they go there, that's okay, but they usually don't, because I understand the first noble truth. That was the real one, that this life is dukkha. Dukkha does not mean suffering exactly. It means that it's unsatisfactory. There's something about being here that's unsatisfactory. In this teaching, it's like riding in a cart with one flat wheel. So as long as you're on the round part of the wheel, man, everything's great. You've got a nice girlfriend and you're drinking wine and all this. And then the flat spot comes around, bam, and the girlfriend leaves and the next wine is sour, drank too much and end up in rehab and whatever it is, and that's what makes it unsatisfactory. And it's unsatisfactory because you know that whatever you have will be lost. Everything that you think you possess will be taken away. All of it, every bit of it. Your possessions, your friends, your loved ones, your own body, and your own mind are going bye-bye. It's what I call the long goodbye. And that's what we're living with. To the extent that we can accept it, we need Mike for that mosquito trapping. Man is fast, he's got the reflexes.
But we can know it's not personal.
We can know it's not, it is personal, but it's impersonal in the sense that it's happening to all of us.
Exactly.
Yes.
Yeah.
We can understand there's no getting out of this.
No.
There is no belief you can adopt. There is no medicine you can take that will transform a human being into an impervious being. It's just not on the agenda. So why I like Buddhism so much and find it far superior to all the other belief systems, far superior, is that I have known many Buddhists who get into that understanding that what we must do is not practice pretending that I don't exist, but practice understanding that life is a momentary experience and one enters into each moment and works with it as best one can, and that's the practice. Am I right there, Elena? Yeah. That's the practice. So if someone comes to me and says, I'm a Buddhist, I'm willing right away to begin to believe that person's practice is not that dissimilar to my practice, although I would not call myself a Buddhist. I can't call myself a Buddhist. The Buddhists wouldn't like it. And anyway, any club that would accept me as a member, as Groucho Marx said, I don't want to be I want no part of it. This is too much fun. And I feel the same as Julia. Being in a group like that, and as Amy, being in a group like this where nobody's trying to put on airs and try to come off as some superior being or something, and isn't trying to annihilate the other people with some argument or... to me, that is so relaxing and so beautiful, because as you know on Facebook, I get a lot of flack, and I have people coming at me all the time. And I've kind of taken it on as my practice is to not write those people off, but meet them with dialectic. I mentioned dialectic the other day, and that's a beautiful term. I like to flesh it out for those who are watching this. Dialectic is argument and debate without the emotional side of it. We don't become vehement. We don't bring a lot of anger to it. We try to understand what's being said, try it on, and to the extent that it fits, we say, yeah, there's something to what you're saying. And if it doesn't fit, we try to explain in open terms why it doesn't seem to fit for me. And I think that's the best we can do in speaking with other people who disagree with us. We enter into a dialectic. You're not trying to prove they're wrong. You're just trying to tell them how that doesn't really jibe with your point of view. Well, I've tried that out on some of these people, and sometimes it works, but most often it doesn't. And they end up saying, Robert, you're on an ego trip, you're really deluded, you're really fucked up, you're crazy. And there it is. Who was it asked? Yes, he's not here today, Yurik last night. Yurik's a great person. I don't know if you got to speak with him at all, but he's a very deep thinker. He asked me last night about a friend of mine who had seemed very close to me, and a few years ago she wrote me off entirely, and then a year later, she came back and said, I was too hasty, will you forgive me? And I said, I don't have to forgive you. If you like me now, great. Well, and then a year or two passed, and she wrote me off again. And this time she says it's for good, because my personality, I have a personality disorder. And, well, okay. Perhaps I do. But if I do, it works really great for me, because I'm I'm not going to mention her name, but she's somebody who praised my work a lot and still says she likes most of it, but there's parts that she can't tolerate. And the Muji part was a big part of that, the Muji part. If you don't understand that when Muji says it's all love, kiss my feet. If you don't really, if you can't abide that, well, you must be psychotic or something. Well, okay, I might be psychotic. Yeah. Well, I'm having so much fun. It's just what Julia was saying. This is, you know, here I am, and I'm flat on my back in a lot of pain 3 months ago. And at the time that I arranged it, I didn't arrange it. At the time that this came into being, this meeting, idea of meeting, I was in good health at that time and felt it's going to be wonderful. I'll walk on the beach with all these people and all this great stuff, which I'm not up to right now. But when I was lying there flat on my back, Marcus asked me about this a bit earlier. I asked myself, are you really going to be able to do this? And I decided that hell or high water, I would do it. I would get out of that bed, stand up, and at least sit up and be here. And I am so glad that I'm here in this moment. I feel very happy. I'm touched emotionally by your presence and my own. And I'm so happy that we could come together like this and have this time of affirmation. And I'm a loner, so I'm not usually in a group of people this large. And often for the same reasons that Amy was mentioning. I don't really like to be listening to a bunch of chit-chat about how great I am and you aren't. And so here I know that's not going to, well, I shouldn't say that. It might arise. We're having some people coming on Thursday, a whole group of them, maybe 8 or 9 new people. And I think at least one of these people I know might want to be into some conflict. We'll see. It might be a good thing, actually. But so I'm resting up now and
taking all the peace you can get.
Yeah, I'll take all the. That's right. I'll take all the peace I can get. Mm-hmm. Yeah. What else?
Yeah, I wanted to ask two questions about the same topic, and that is, first of all, how you perceive readers to take on, for example, the 10,000 Things differently, as per if they are women or men or anything else, or homosexual. If you perceive any difference in how your material is taken up, and also if you look at fellow humans that speak up, if you can see any difference in how women present an awakened perspective, and men, or likewise homosexuals, or whatever comes to mind.
Well, that's a great question, and if I attempt to reply to it, I'll really be sticking my foot in it. So I will. In my view and in my experience, there's a real difference between how men and women have evolved. And this is fairly new, but in the last 15 years, with brain scanning improving day by day, there are differences in the male brain and the female brain, and they're not small, they're big. This is not widely known, But when it is, it's going to really transform a lot of these arguments and provide new battlegrounds. I see a difference in the way that men and women have evolved. But before I get into that, it's not a clear-cut distinction, it's more of a spectrum. But not entirely a spectrum, because there's an end of the spectrum that is the more male end, where the brain was different at birth and then was bathed in testosterone during its development, where no women are really at that end. And the same thing on the female end of it. There may be a very feminine man, there are, but they don't get to the far end of that spectrum, in my observation. But there is a real difference. And it's biological, because the reproductive roles are very different. So naturally, the minds that manage that plumbing have had to differ. Women can produce copies of their DNA in a very limited quantity. Perhaps they can have 5 children, or 10, or 20, or 30. I think the record is 60. And a lot of that happened because this woman gave birth, multiple births. There were a lot of twins and triplets. But yeah, but here in Mexico, in the last century, there were many families of 12 or 14 kids, yes, right? Yeah. Mm-hmm. So the woman's ability to transfer her DNA into the next generation, and I think I covered this yesterday, but just to take a step back, the ability to transfer your DNA into the next generation is how the next generation got here. So the people who were most skillful at that were the ones who projected their genes, and the people who didn't have that gene in sufficient force, they didn't get to do it, and so their offspring are not here in our world. If you were too gentle and not aggressive enough, the old ancestors, their offspring are not here, not in this room. Even though there are very gentle people in this room, they're not that gentle. If you're too gentle, your offspring don't get to survive. You have to be willing to kill to protect them, for example, like a mother really is. Yes. So the female brain, if I can call it that, I'm sticking my foot in it here because according to the latest generation, they're bullshit. You aren't actually a woman, you're performing a woman, if that's what you're doing. And if you wanted to perform a man, you could, and then you'd be trans, and everybody's just supposed to bow to that. I don't. Okay, so I think this is a mistaken road, and we're going to be going back from this road, hopefully pretty soon, before too many more medical experiments are performed on children, which is now the case. They're being given hormones at the age of 6 or 8 because they are gender dysphoric, which some people are. They're tomboys. Or, yeah, okay, I won't go too far into that. I'm actually reading about it now in an excellent book called The Madness of Crowds, which I recommend, by Douglas Murray. He goes into this in detail. And I'm being influenced by it in a good way, I think. Anyway, the female brain developed to favor arranging situations that were nutritive and safe so that these few offspring that they had would be in a world where they could easily survive. And so in general, I'm only speaking generally, in general, women favor social relations and improving those and making safe spaces and providing food and shelter and being careful not to tear down too much or take too many big risks. In general, women are risk adverse. I'm speaking very generally. Men, on the other hand, have a completely different reproductive possibility. Genghis Khan, it's said, produced hundreds of thousands of offspring in his lifetime, and all of us have some of the DNA of Genghis Khan as a result. Everyone in this room is an offspring of Genghis Khan. Good old Genghis. He could get it up and keep it up. And so the man's idea is, if this family dies out, that's okay, I can have another one. And so it's okay to take risks. It's okay for me to get on the Santa Maria and sail from Spain to the New World. Yes, it's pretty risky and I might not come back, but I've already fathered all these children and I don't really need to come back. There's hundreds of them. And so my DNA is assured to survive. And that's pretty much what it comes down to. And we can see this in our social relations. I'm not saying that there are not women who are promiscuous sexually, but women tend to be less promiscuous sexually than men, and to value being in a more stable relationship before they have a child. Men don't actually care how many children they have, basically. They can walk out on one family, they often do, and go on, have another family and another one after that if that's what they want to do, and meanwhile have lots of girlfriends on the side. And that's another trait in this country that's changing now, but there was this culture of machismo in this culture here. Elena knows more about it than I do, but it was okay to have a girlfriend or many of them, am I right? Yes. Yeah, and that was just accepted. And the wives had to accept it in a sense, because in order to do their part of this DNA transmission, they had to keep the home together. And if the husband needed girlfriends, okay, as long as he comes home and pays the bills, and fine. I may not love it, but I have to deal with it. Now, I think it's good that that tradition has gone away. Kirsten and I've had this conversation. There are women in life who want to have lots of lovers, or that's just the way it is. And I think that's fine. I don't think there's any moral judgment to be made there at all. Or there's women who can be in one relationship for a while and decide, I've gone as far as I can with this, I'm going to change. That used to be a more male prerogative, and now both men and women have it culturally, and I think that's as it should be. So I'm not trying to say these roles must remain clear-cut, but I also think it's really important not to imagine that they don't exist at all, because then we're doing violence to what we really are, which is not universal consciousness, but in my sense, a brain that was already born a male brain and then was bathed in testosterone. And so we're pretty willing to fight for a mate. We're pretty willing to take other men on and get the woman we want. Sometimes we do it physically, but more often we do it by proving our worth as an earner or an intellectual or a talented musician or whatever it is. That's why yesterday when I was saying I see us biologically, basically psychobiologically, that's what I mean. And I think when we see each other that way, we can relax into our own role and not be at war with it. Well, what else? Mike.
Yes. There was a poem that you put in the Depending on No thing that I just wanted, it was really beautiful about I don't know who wrote it, but the river and the bubbling.
Say it again?
It was about the river winding and the bubbling in the river, the gurgling.
Oh, that poem.
Yeah, I was just curious if you could just say why you put that in the book and your interpretation of it, because I thought it was just really beautiful. I was just curious how you see it.
Yeah, that's a beautiful poem.
Yeah.
About the river is gurgling and all of us are just the gurgles.
The gurgling in the river, and the river's just winding to nowhere.
The river doesn't know where it's going. It's just gurgling, going nowhere.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I think that's the case. And I think that's what the Buddha was saying. Nothing's going anywhere. It just is what it is. That's a wonderful understanding. And one of the reasons that I'm not a Buddhist, although I know a lot about Buddhism, not a lot, I know something about Buddhism. Robert knew a lot. Robert's passed away, but I want to mention his name now and say what a wonderful influence he was on me. What a great man. And I hope people will check him out. He's still got writings and a web page and all that, and he's really worth listening to. Robert Hall, yes. Dr. Robert K. Hall. Beautiful cat. And now, I'm not being mystical here, or this is not magical thinking, but that's how Robert continues, in my view. He's not here, but there's a part of him in Elena, and it comes out. There's a part of him in me, and it comes out. And sooner or later, Elena and I will die, and then that'll probably be the finale for Robert Hall. Although, maybe not, it might continue, but in a weakened state, and eventually that river kind of runs dry in the desert, and that's impermanence. Even the Buddha is not permanent, because although you speak the name, that cat's not really here to express himself, and all we have is the chit-chat and versions that are not, really probably don't have that much to do with what he realized and understood, because I don't think there are too many Buddhists who are seeking enlightenment who can say to themselves, I'm seeking absolutely nothing, which is what the Buddha said. His sidekick, according to this sutra, asked him, "Oh, great one, when you achieved unexcelled perfect enlightenment, what is it that you achieved?" And the Buddha replied, "When I achieved unexcelled perfect enlightenment, I achieved absolutely nothing. That is why it's called unexcelled perfect enlightenment." Now, I don't really meet many Buddhists who, if you ask them what it is, what are you seeking, they say nothing. If they could say that, they would already be done, and then they wouldn't have to go to any more meetings. They could, though, if they want to be with their friends. That's what Robert was like. Robert didn't have these meetings because he was seeking enlightenment. He had these meetings because he wanted to be around nice people. That's really true. And he came here and told me that. I was one of the first people Robert met when he came here. We hit it off right away. And he said, I'm going to do a thing here. And I said, great, man, that sounds good. There isn't anything like that here. I'm really glad to hear it. And that's what happened. And he made this beautiful thing. And every Sunday, the guy got up, whether he was in the mood or not, showed up, sat there, and first he would have a period of silence. And a period of silence is a good thing. I don't enforce it at a meeting like this because I know that all of you know how to be silent and come to your own conclusions. But he would have that, and then he would give a talk. And a lot of these talks have been recorded by Alvaro, his mate, and they're online. I highly recommend listening to a few of those. They're highly enlightened. And then Elena became part of that, and she's given a lot of talks now too, and they're good. So I'm delighted to have her here, and the fact that she was willing to edit my writings and that was a gift. This whole thing of being in this present situation, it's nothing I ever intended or expected. It's been a happening that just arose, and it's been a tremendous gift. And all these beautiful people have come into my life as a result. Elena is one of them. I love this woman. She's just she's superb, superb. Another one, two actually, is Catherine and Julian Noyce, who published my writings. These people looked me up. And and Catherine said, write a book and we'll publish it. That doesn't happen to a writer who has no published works. That's an amazing, that is so rare that I don't know how that happens. And do we have to change anything here?
Let me check. Hold on. Is that his microphone?
No, this is the audience mic.
Okay, the audience mic.
Yeah.
Those batteries were no.
Go ahead. Let's all take a break. I'll get back on the noises after we return.